to keep going because we have so many great guests today. And today the time worked out for both of them. Um, so Dr. Alex Kaufman is actually similar to me. We have a background from California, but he's studied not only in California, but he did his PhD in Thailand, where he's been living for how many years now? 25 years in Thailand. So he's gained obviously a lot of experience globally. And he's going to share his topic of expertise, which is ESG. How many of you know what ESG is? But yes. Great, fantastic. So you can see the class is ready. So we're going to get his presentation up, and then let's welcome Dr. Kaufman to the class.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here today, and I'm going to talk about a slightly different perspective about business. So not just business about making money, but business in terms of creating value for society, right? So business does have a purpose besides providing goods and services. Business has, let's say, a type of obligation to society. So what we're going to do is start by talking a little bit about the foundations of ESG and really what is sustainability by learning a little bit about your own values.
And yeah, is this working as the slide? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Now, yes.
So in terms of value and values, these are two different words or two different expressions. Let's start by a little example. Can I see this? What is this? And is this what? Is this expensive? No, it's not expensive. How much does this cost? How much did you pay for the whole thing? So about a bit over 3 million. Yeah, a bit over 3 million. Would you pay 3 million for this? No. Why not? Oh, you have one that's better than, okay, great. And how much did you pay for that? 5 mil. And why do you think that's worth 5 million?
It's like maybe the highest version of the F1 Pro. So like I decided to buy it. And I also think that with the pay, so it make me very good experience about listening to them, which is my hobby.
Do you think I would pay 5 million for one of those? No. Because I have a different set of values than this gentleman. This can be influenced by my age, my upbringing, and many different other aspects. So we're also going to talk more about values or moral principles. That's what I'm really interested in. So how do people value different aspects of what happens in society or or different types of resources that we use? This is really about ESG. So we're going to talk a little more about environment, social, and governance. But not everyone values those various aspects of the world equally, right? This kind of depends on your background and your education.
Just use the right arrow. Yeah, there.
So what I'm interested in is where your values come from. Some people have developed a perspective of the world based around their parents. It could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend could influence these values, or a teacher, or some type of guru. I think the gentleman in the back of the room, I'm guessing he might be the type of person that is influenced by some kind of multi-billionaire or key innovator in society, but it's just a guess. I could be wrong. So what I'd like you to do is in pairs discuss these various aspects, and then I want you to prioritize or order them. So what's most important to you, and how does that influence your values or your way of looking at the world or your decision making? So, and then I want you to put those in order. Is anyone here good with Google Forms? Who's good with Google Forms? Is that a yes? So what I'd like you to do is, you have a way to link with the other students to get their responses so that we could put this in a graph format through Google Forms? Yes? Is that a yes? Or a no? Or would someone else like to volunteer to do this? Or we can do, the other way we could do it is just a tally. So we can ask and then try to rate 1 through 5, which is highest. I'm going to leave, you understand the exercise? Yes, or you can just do tally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'm going to leave it to you to gather the data from the class, okay? And to help them. It doesn't need to be anything formal. I just want to understand which is the highest rank. So was everyone influenced by a professor, or is everyone influenced by a parent? So can we do this in 10 minutes? Yeah. Okay, great. If you have questions, I can come around and give you more detail.
Yeah.
So you can be talking. Talk to each other. Welcome to talk. Maybe in pairs or a couple of people to talk about it. Be ready for prioritize.
So they have 10 groups ready. They have the 10 groups to do it.
Sure, that's great.
That these,
Yeah,
so the 10 groups should rank number 1 through 5
yeah.
in priority.
Family and education.
So each of the 10 groups. 5, what's a higher priority?
What is the highest priority based on your personal values, right? It's like your
Just
goal.
one highest hay là sắp xếp highest cao nhất của mình đó, không là cái không phải là sắp xếp
Few minutes, if you're able to do it very quick, we can tally the results. Is there a way for the groups to share the results? Or should we have each group tell us what your priorities, or you want it more aggregated? You want all the.
tiền nhé. Thì cũng đi mai điện rồi tóc tôi lại này.
Is there a way? Oh, yeah, that's great. We don't need
You prioritize. Chưa đấy.
You want a group, or how will you impact your understanding?
Trời ơi, không rồi. Chết rồi. Cái lớp nhìn có sợ quá cái biết. Hay là không thì sẽ đi cỡ trước kia mình thuyết trình, hôm nay mình thuyết trình, sáng mai mình thuyết trình nữa, chờ nó đi. Đây mình thuyết trình vì lại gặp tâm đó. Đúng rồi, phải question process. Bạn nào điểm danh ổn số thì lại học không đi à? Đi cho
You should be getting a survey that's coming around now. And you can do the vote and then we will get the tally. So that way, Dr. Kaufman can then share the results. Because once he gets a sense of where your value is from, I think that's a better understanding, depending on like the different options here, right? So. Okay. So you should get that soon. Yeah, see this.
Ini buat tak kebet. Xuống xuống muộn. Cậu xuống muộn tới đúng không? Đúng rồi, cậu cứ trả tiền tới. một cơn sợ lỗi cho lúc đấy ai cũng là mình không đấy là đến cô linh gì nó chỉ phản ánh thầy thôi chứ không chỉ điền cái câu của thầy hết ta chỉ phản ánh thầy thôi mà sao nên đơn giản của ai đấy rồi nói tiếng Việt không chị ấy tiếng Anh
Did everyone get the survey?
cô cho điểm danh
Did everyone fill it out?
mệt thật
Okay. So can we, is there a way to show the results? Because once you get the results. Oh, she'll be able to see them. Oh. So, I think she can either share the results and I can open it up, or put it in the shared drive. I don't know.
what she did. She didn't do anything. Hai buổi lên lại luôn đấy. Hai buổi lên là cậu là mình buổi.
So make sure you fill in the survey real quick. We'll look at the results and we'll continue.
Cậu lên ý. Là tarot chứ. Chứ có đây mình có đâu. Nhưng mà bây giờ tôi đang không hiểu đây vui lòng không chọn nhiều hơn của một phản hồi mỗi một là gì, tức là một chỉ chọn một phản hồi thôi cái gì không phải đạt được như vậy. Vâng, ta chỉ có mỗi một năm thì cũng không có đang thì cậu phải religious cái gì nữa mất một buổi lết rồi đấy mình phải không có thắng ý yêu cô có nhìn con này này em rồi chưa có đi mình thật là em không bao giờ thiếu chị có được xong học bài học cứ em cứ con nào thì chết hết còn chị gửi hết mà anh lòng thay vì 50.000 tính 10.000 bài tôi thích con này nhá con môn này thế tôi phải tính lại điểm của tôi xem nếu mà tôi bê hết tôi có được giỏi không tính lại thôi con người không ham hố no need need
The other results of this class.
kiểu thầy nhìn vào chứ hiểu
Okay. Silencio, por favor. Okay. So is that
would that be representative of most of you? I mean, most of you agree with that? Anyone sort of falls into the lesser category? So religion, so very few of you stated that you have some type of value or religious value, right? That's not very popular here. Anybody feel that Buddhist values impact their decision making? Anyone would say that? No?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes. So how could you explain a little bit more about how Buddhism influences your values? Or like maybe you could say something about, let's say, family or any of these? Well, maybe let's hold on that. Let's talk about that later, about religious values. That may come into play later in our discussion. How many of you chose a guru or, type, like a billionaire or Bill Gates or somebody like that, that highly influences the decisions you're making? Nobody? That's interesting, because I think in Thailand, many people would choose a guru. And here in Vietnam and the other class that I tried this activity, also very few people were influenced by a guru. What about how many people would say they're more highly influenced by their mother than their father? Or mother? Wow, okay. Many of you say mother. And how many of you say your father? Your father. Okay. Great. All right. So as we go through this discussion, you'll get a better understanding about why I'm asking these questions. All right. But can we get back to the question? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Yeah, great. Thank you. So when you go into the business world, you may or may not take your personal values with you. For example, in the United States, when you do an MBA program, maybe Mark, how much did your MBA program cost in total? Over $100,000, right? So would you say that when you finished your MBA, you were interested in making some big money quickly? That helps to pay it off. Sure. Right. Okay. That helps to pay it off. Do you think a lot of your friends on the MBA program, or did they talk a lot about making lots of money and paying off their school? Some did. Okay. So when you go, some of you may be indebted in a certain way to your parents, maybe not financially. Maybe you don't have to pay your parents back for your education, but you may be concerned about helping out your family, right? So you're like thinking, God, I got to make some money. So are you going to take the job that pays the most, or the job that you like the most, or a job that kind of fulfills your value, right? Like this. So, if you look at Buddhism, for example, there's certain rules within Buddhism, right? For example, not to kill. So if you wanted to apply Buddhism to business, right, you wouldn't work for a weapons making company, right? Like, so that would be kind of against Buddhist values. But what if the company said they would pay you $1 million US salary, and you're starting to think, more important to me, money or, or my personal values at home, or what my parents think of me, right? So these are, then there's on the other side of the spectrum, maybe some of you want to be an artist or a musician, but your parents say, well, we want you to make money, right? So we don't want you to pursue a career in art. So many of these things change and depend on your personal values. Now, as a business, you don't always have the opportunity or the chance to implement your personal values because, for example, Mr. Mark, he works with new companies and startups that invest. So they're looking for investments to start up, right? And these investments sometimes require these companies to make great accomplishments. And say, for example, to grow quickly as a company, or maybe they may make some decisions which aren't completely ethical based on the company's desire to make money or the desire to pay back their stockholders or the desire to see their company move up quickly in the ranks. Yes, please. So I'd like to understand a little bit about your values. So, for example, is it better that you have a new public park in your neighborhood or a shopping mall that's nearby? How many of you would say it's more important to have a shopping mall than a public park? Okay, good. Would somebody who chose the shopping mall explain to me why is it more important to have the shopping mall than another public park nearby?
Public.
Because I live in the countryside, so I have like plenty of space to run around. So, and we are in need of a shopping mall where people travel like reliable. So I would choose a shopping mall.
Does somebody disagree with them? To preserve those natural spaces in her neighborhood, maybe they think she should come to the city if she could go access the shopping mall. Anybody feel like that or anybody disagree with her? Nobody disagrees. Okay. Thank you, Miriam. All right. So, for example, building a dam or not for electricity. Does anybody understand what are some of the negative impacts? So a dam has many uses, right? It controls water resources. It can be used to create electricity. But what happens when you build the dam? Has anybody ever seen, like, what are some of the negative impacts that might have? Nobody?
I believe building up dam will from like exactly water flow and it's like not really destroy but change the ecosystems of that area.
Okay. Right, so it can change the natural ecology. Sometimes when you build the dam, you have to move people that lived in that area to a new area. So there's been many cases, for example, where the fishermen in that area had to change their profession or move to a new location. So in that case, the company may have to compensate. But part of what businesses or companies are required to do in the old days, they could just make a decision. Now, companies and even government institutions that are building these kind of projects, they need to engage with their stakeholders, right? They need to start to think about the concerns of society and how they can remediate those. Fossil fuels versus biofuel, right? So what is a biofuel? It's based on a plant-based fuel, right? So in order to increase biofuels and decrease the amount of petroleum, what would you need to do?
Okay. Again.
I think like personally, people make it more effective because like right now, like fossil fuel is like way cheaper. It's also work way better. You know, if you make that, if you make like biofuels like better, obviously more people use it. And secondly, like I mentioned, it costs more, right? So if you want people to use it more, obviously, with governments or it wasn't like high up like position, they got had like incentives basically for people to use biofuel more than fossil fuel.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So there's never right or wrong answers because your answers are based on your opinions and your values, right? What about the next? So this is a bit general. I think I'm going to skip from conservation to resources. So the last question is kind of interesting. So, for example, do you have any? I don't know the answer to this. Do you have dolphins off the coast anywhere? No. Yes. 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 We do have dolphins. Or do you have any tours to go see dolphins?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you have tours to go see dolphins. That means that you attract dollars from maybe local tourists, from external tourists coming abroad, right? The fishermen, or excuse me, the boat drivers make money from that, right? So in that case, how do you put a valuation on one dolphin or $100? Is there a way to calculate that? The use value of a dolphin to society, to the Vietnamese economy. Is there a way to put a value on that? You say value. Does anybody, any economists or mathematicians in this room? So perhaps there is a way, right? You could say, how many tourists come to do those kind of activities? How many go on a boat tour to see the dolphins, right? Let's say you have 1 million tourists, and then you could set a value in terms of all the revenue that came in. That might even be connected to the hotels in the area, the restaurants in the area, right? And then divide that perhaps by, the number of tourists to come up with some kind of or multiplication. It would require a formula. You can tell by the way I'm mumbling, I'm not a mathematician. But I think if I wanted to make money, I would be able to figure out a way to calculate that value. So perhaps the animals have a use value or an intangible value, which means that it's really hard to value that. Then you start to think about the whole ecosystem, right? So if the dolphins are going to survive, they don't just need people not to kill the dolphins, but they need the ecosystem to be intact. They need sources of food. They need less pollution in that area. So then there becomes a whole interconnected network of different aspects that support the life of the livelihood of the dolphins, and in turn the livelihood of the people in that area, right? They earn an income. So why am I talking about this? What is the important aspects of this concept, ESG? I think I'm going to skip this slide and move to. So what is ESG? ESG is a concept based on the idea of corporate social responsibility, sustainability. This is a number of, can everyone read this? So for example, under the E of environment, you have climate change, strategy, biodiversity, water efficiency, energy efficiency, carbon intensity. For example, does everybody know why carbon intensity is important? Have you heard talk about carbon emissions? Yes.
So basically carbon emissions in very small. like many people say, it's not a green but it do trap the heat arise from our surface, and so it makes our Earth warm, and so that's a problem of global warming. So making more cloud intensity, so it traps more heat, and our Earth is accelerating the rates of warming.
So the interesting aspect is that it's moved from a scientific theory to an application. So this, what happens is that companies in the real economy now need to measure their carbon emissions or the tonnage of carbon emissions that are emitted into the environment. So they can do that by looking at how much electricity they use, how much fuel they use. That includes, let's say, generators that are used to run factories. That includes how energy is created in the zone where a factory is located. At the same time, they have to manage their other types of environmental emissions, which mean, pollution, right? So there's different types of chemicals that are used in the process, let's say, of making a computer, right? There's all kinds of different impacts. And this has become very complicated because let's say you have, for example, does anyone have an Apple computer? Yes, an Apple, an iPad, or an Apple product. Where are those made? Does anybody know? In China. And do you know where the resources, what goes into making a computer? What kinds of metals, for example, or
Biết tận luôn.
does anybody know? Anyone know what the battery is made out of? The battery, yeah? What? Lithium, right? Right, that's one of the key aspects. And where does lithium come from? Yes, it's one of the rare elements or rare minerals, and it's available in different countries. For example, Africa. Yeah, there's many countries. They found it in South Africa and various other regions. I believe in the Congo region of Africa, there's quite a bit of lithium. So then these companies need to start to be responsible not only for the product, but actually the minerals, the substances that go into the computer, right? So these are sort of the environmental aspects. Then we have the social aspects, which relate to employment and community. So, for example, does anybody know what the minimum wage is in Vietnam? A daily wage or a monthly wage? Does anyone know what a factory worker makes?
As I remember that the law states living wages, the factories or company must pay for the employee is about like every thousand VAT, about less than $5 per hour. Okay.
I believe there's also a lot of factories in Vietnam. Is it there? And why would a U.S. manufacturer, or excuse me, a U.S. brand company want to manufacture in Vietnam?
Labor costs.
Labor, right? What else?
I think we have an open FDI policy.
So why would that? What does that mean to the company?
So policy for investors to Vietnam
economy is reopened and government really focuses on attracting the FDI investment. So if they invest in Vietnam, it will be easier for them to get their business.
Great. And on the other side of the spectrum, what is the reason why Hanoi is air quality is so poor? Well, what is that from agriculture or industry, or is that primarily from the use of vehicles in the city? Does anybody know the answer? I don't know the answer.
Most of
Yeah,
it.
do you have an answer for that too?
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
Survey mà Hiếu.
So I think one of the important factors that contribute to economic competition is about the geographical factors. So Hanoi is our mountainous area. We have a curved mountain both, so it push the wind will push through that for mountain both, so this push the dust and many things into Hanoi. So it's just like that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Definitely the geography. It's similar to the city of Chiang Mai in terms of the geography there, and there's also a huge pollution problem. But that's actually been increased by burning in agriculture, like slash and burn. So after they grow one crop in the region, not necessarily in Chiang Mai, they burn down all the crops of, let's say, corn, and then that contributes to higher levels of particulates in the air, right? So government in Vietnam has made serious steps towards implementing ESG policies, implementing what's called a circular economy policy. Has anyone ever heard of that term, circular economy? Yes. Well, what does circular economy mean to you?
I think like from the inputs until the outputs of the production, they are all made within an economy or like an ecosystem. That's what I understand.
So how can you create a circular economy system? What is the importance, right? When you're trying to reduce the use of resources, right? And what can you do to improve that flow or decrease the flow of resources in the system? Anybody?
Recycle.
So one simple one is recycling, right? Or reusing, or creating what's called like an EPR, extended producer responsibility. That means when you design, for example, an Apple computer or laptop, you design it in a way that it doesn't just get thrown away. How many people in the last 5 years have had more than 2 telephones? Have purchased more than 2 phones? And what happens to the old phone? Where does it go?
I still keep it.
Well, it depends on phones really, because like for like cheaper models, usually people just like throw it down.
Yeah.
But like for more high-end stuff, you can resell different parts. But obviously not everyone doing this because like the parts are not really that expensive. You know, I mean, if you want to have like a little bit of money, you can sell it. But like most people prefer not to sell it; they just like keep it on the phone.
Is that you're talking about an iPhone or?
Yeah, they're like an iPhone. Actually, quite a big market for that. You know, I think got like a broken phone, but like for example, you got like broken screen, like Paris or you know, the cameras and stuff where it's still pretty fine. You can sell them for parts. But you know, obviously not everybody do this.
Great, thank you for your input on that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that the government can enact policies to do that. But one of the reasons why I come to Vietnam is because the government here is enacting a series of policies, rules, and regulations, and even within education itself, they realize that there's a problem, right? Vietnam has been focused many years on being, let's say, the manufacturer of the world. We used to say that, yeah, for example, China is the factory of the world. That's slowly shifting, right? So the Vietnamese government, I believe, some of this has been cued off what's happened in China, right? So they're looking at making that shift to more of a knowledge economy. That's why the US is so rich, because it's a knowledge economy. And these days, manufacturing is just supporting brand value. Like, so if you look at what might be the cost of, anybody have a pair of Nike shoes? Anyone wearing a Nike, Adidas, or some big name brand sport shoe? Yes? You're the only one? Any of these people here that are busy on their computers and phones?
Yeah.
What kind of shoes are you wearing? What brand?
I'm wearing Fila.
Fila. Okay. And do you have any idea how much it would? Okay, sorry. First, how much did you pay for those shoes?
I bought it on Black Friday, and it just cost about around 1 million Vietnam.
Okay. So if the cost was $1 million, the actual value maybe 2 million or something around like that, right? So the production costs based on labor and the minimum wage and the actual resources used could be maybe 10% of that value, right? Maybe it only costs, say it's a million, so maybe 100,000, maybe could be less than 100,000 dong to make that pair of shoes. Now, the factory that makes those shoes probably gets maybe double or triple that. So then there's 70% left, right, of value in that shoe. Well, that goes to the exporters, the retailers, and the big money goes to the Adidas, the Fila, the Nike, because it's all in the marketing, right? The value that they create of the brand. So ESG is also about trying to create more equitable value, and for countries that realize that they want to move out of manufacturing, they want to be OEM, right? Like, so the original equipment manufacturer and the seller, like the what do you guys say now, the ocean, like that, right? So you want to be, Vietnam is trying to create brand value to change for society. So generally speaking, I think ESG is a valuable way of looking at the guide society. And it's about creating benefits and opportunities. It's not just about controlling how companies or governments operate. It's about improving societal well-being. For example, creating food resources that are more healthy, that they have less of an impact on the environment. It's about creating products that can be recycled and reused so that resources aren't exhausted. It's about creating clean air, and it's also about better working conditions. So there's a huge number. Obviously, the majority of Vietnamese people are not in this classroom today, right? They're working in various jobs, growing coffee. They are working in factories, they're working, building automobiles and doing many different types of jobs, right? So we need to look at all aspects of society and try to create more equitable development. That's what they're talking about when they say sustainability, right? So what is the future of your children? How many of you plan to have children or would hope to have children? Want to raise your hand?
We have
Really, that's low, huh? How many of you don't want to have children? If no one wants to say, it's probably the answer to that. But what we're trying to do with these sustainability and ESG initiatives is to create a better future for people and society, right? So we need to think about our grandchildren, our children, and what kind of world they're going to live in the future. So that's about it for today. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Take at least a question or two for Dr. Kaufman. What you shared about ESG and your values, company values. Yes, question.
Actually, I don't really have a really question, but I'd like to comment. I really love the ESG topic because this is how we create value through how we're also making money by doing business, but also have responsibility to the social and to other people that impact by our business action. So I just have only one question. Can you share about the job opportunities or any job relations that related to the ESG problem or something like ESG to I really like to share our to make value to the social society. So I really enjoy this topic.
It's a good time to be interested. Please. So it's a good time to be interested in ESG, not just in terms of, bettering society, but also for job opportunities. So all of the big manufacturers that produce for the brands have some kind of position in those factories which is in charge of occupational health and safety, environmental hazards, and labor law compliance, because they have a number of standards that they need to follow to export. So Nike and Adidas and all those companies have a code of conduct that the factories need to adhere to. So there's jobs at the factory level, there's jobs at the brand level. So, for example, Adidas might have 30 factories that have to abide by an ESG code, and then they would have a representative in country that manages those 30 factories, the relationships in terms of improving their performance. So that's one type of position. Then all of the international development organizations, sort of like the United Nations, the WWF or World Wildlife Foundation, and many different charities, all are enacting different types of ESG programs. So you can get jobs doing training or program development or being a researcher. Those types of jobs are available, and also management jobs in those organizations. So that's really, international development is really shifted towards like charity and philanthropy and giving away to projects that have a focused impact on society. The other opportunity is like, for example, Mr. Mark showed me here in Vietnam, called Buyo, B-U-Y-O. That company has taken advantage of an opportunity to produce products that, or packaging, which has a very low impact on the environment, and they're 100% recyclable. So these types of both business ventures and working for companies with a sustainability ethos. So because, for example, to export to the EU, it's a requirement. So companies, big companies need to have those policies, practices, and procedures in place. So those jobs are definitely available. And I think they will be increasingly available in Vietnam, at least for the next 15 to 20 years until AI robots replace everybody. Yeah, I think it is the future.
I know we're kind of running past time. Any last comment before we thank Dr. Kaufman? See, the students have something for you. So, okay. You don't get it from. Great. Well, let's thank Dr. Kaufman again for sharing.